Alright, what's going on, guys? This is a video I've been wanting to make for quite a while now, and before I even start to say the subject of today's video, I need to preface it with a few things. Number one, this is not me trying to hate on Elden Ring whatsoever. The reason I'm talking about these things is because the game is so good and has so much potential. And number two, the lore videos you guys are waiting on are coming. However, this topic has kind of been in the spotlight lately, so I wanted to get this out now instead of waiting for a while. And number three, please watch the whole video before you leave a comment, because by the end of it we might end up agreeing. But with all that out of the way, let's get into it. I believe we're at a point now where we've reached a crucial point of contingency when it comes to the future of Elden Ring, and honestly FromSoftware games as a whole going forward. And it revolves around how invaders have been treated in Elden Ring, because we could see the signs of this going into the game's release. When it was first announced that Elden Ring was not going to have solo host invasions, a lot of us who have been around the PvP scene for a while kind of got this pit in our stomachs, because we could see what this would ultimately lead to. And now that we've reached this point, we were right. All of the predictions came true. And honestly, a lot worse than we expected. If you're active in the PvP scene in Elden Ring, then you probably know just how horrible it is right now. The weapons are extremely imbalanced. Most of the invasions that you'll find are either AFK farmers or gank squads with extremely over-leveled phantoms. And that's on the off chance that you can even find a world to invade. Because we're reaching a point now where most people have beaten the game, and the amount of people that are still co-oping their way through have decreased drastically, and this was all predicted. I made a video a very long time ago right when this news broke, where I kid you not, I predicted every one of the problems we're seeing in PvP right now. And that's not to toot my own horn. What I'm trying to say by that is, the concerns were not unwarranted, but the balancing issues and the matchmaking issues are not the main problem. The main thing I was talking about in that video, and that I think still holds true, is that what this change has done more than anything is create and reinforce a stigma that believes that invasions should not be a part of the Souls games. And I believe that above all else is the biggest mistake that Elden Ring has made. I understand the sentiment that Elden Ring and the Souls games are RPGs first and multiplayer games second. I mean, my favorite FromSoftware game is Sekiro, and that game doesn't even have multiplayer. But the thing is, you can only play the same game a certain number of times before it gets boring. Unless you're into speed runs or challenge runs, or somebody that's gonna mod the game a lot, eventually you're gonna run out of new experiences. And I think with Elden Ring being a game that relies so heavily on that sense of discovery, for me personally, I think it suffers the worst from this. And so what it leaves the majority of the fanbase that are going to be playing this game several months after release is a realization that PvP is the end game. And there's only one thing in these games that consistently gives you a new experience every time you do it, and that is invasions. What I also understand is the business side of why they chose to go with this idea of no more solo host invasions. Elden Ring, more so than any Souls game in the past, was marketed to a new audience. This game was tailor-made to provide an experience to players who are unfamiliar with how they work. And so they didn't want all these new people coming into the game and getting invaded right off the bat, and thinking that they're not going to be able to play the game because there are people out there who are better than them. And I do think from a business perspective it worked. In the first month alone, Elden Ring became the best-selling FromSoftware title of all time. But I think in trying to please the new players, this game inadvertently alienated the veterans. You see, we as veterans know that invasions are a core mechanic of these games. It's a core part of what makes them Souls games. There is nothing else like it out there. Invasions are a rush, it's a hunt that challenges both the host and the invader in ways that the standard story mode can't. But that's not how these new players see it. These people think invasions are only a way for the invader to go in and ruin the day of the host trying to play the game. As a veteran, obviously you know that's not the case. None of us care whether or not we ruin the day of the person playing. What makes invasions so fun is that the invader gets to play a role of a mini-boss, and like I said earlier, go on a hunt of the host. It's fun because it adds an extra layer that Duels don't create. The invader has to use things like stealth, setting up traps, navigating the level to catch the host off guard. It's a one-of-a-kind experience that you don't get from any other kind of interaction. And the sad thing is, most of the people that oppose invasions have never even tried it, and cast a sweeping judgment judgment before they're even educated. Scott Jund recently put out a video where he addressed this very sentiment. He had made a video talking about the new PC mod that allows players to go on seamless 4-player co-op, and his take on the matter was that that mod had single-handedly destroyed invasions on PC because it severely diluted the pool of invadable worlds, to a point where numerous PvP players have said it's almost impossible to find a world to invade on PC. And that video was met with a huge string of hate, with co-opers saying that they should be entitled to play with their friends without having to deal with an invader. And all of these people were under the assumption that the only motivation for being an invader was to go in and ruin the day of the other person. But here's the thing, even if that was their motivation, there is not a single FromSoftware game where you are entitled to play with your friends without also opening yourself up to invasions. Now, I'm not going to go down the whole rabbit hole of that discussion, but that's one of the few cases where we can definitely say that was not the developer's intention. I almost never say things like this, but that's a point where this is not the game for you if that's what you believe. And here's where I think the heart of that problem lies. To that point, it's very similar to the easy mode argument, in that that is not the intended experience. Co-op is an option. It's an option that makes the game significantly easier, and the trade-off you pay for that is opening yourself up to invasions. If you want to play for your friends, you have to also allow the hunt to take place. That's how it's always been, and that's how it's hopefully always going to be. And under that guise, you should welcome the invaders. Like I said before, there's nothing else out there quite like it. Even if you do get invaded, you are still at a significant advantage over the invader. It's a 2 or even 3 versus 1 fight, and with Elden Ring's new level design, it's also very rare that you're actually going to get caught up in the enemies of the level on top of the invader. But let me move on to a different point now and address the thought that it doesn't matter if we almost can't invade because you still have duels. And here's the thing, duels are great, they're a lot of fun, but there's no longer the element of the hunt. You can only do a 1v1 so many times before they all start to seem the same. It's fun for a little bit, but then you start to realize that there's almost no reason to do them after you've gone up against every different weapon type. Duels are great, but they're not a replacement for invasions. And with the weapon balancing being so bad in this game, if you're not using the meta, then you're putting yourself at a self-imposed disadvantage. And if you do use the meta, then every fight seems to be the same and it's really not fun. But now that I've addressed the problems and ranted enough, let's talk about some solutions, of which I think are very simple and very possible. Number 1, the weapons have to be balanced. And it doesn't even have to be that much, just the significant outliers. Things like Moonveil, Rivers of Blood, Bloodhound Step, and certain extremely high poise armors can all be tweaked a little bit to a point where the person using them isn't automatically going to win. And on top of that, we have a handful of glitches that should be fixed regardless that are ultimately ruining PvP for everybody. Now, I'm not going to go through all those here. I know several other YouTubers have made showcases, but with that point, I need to also say that balancing PvP does not mean that PvE is going to be unbalanced. The exact same weapons that are outliers in PvP are also outliers in PvE, so fixing them is a win-win for both cases. Now, on to the next solution. I don't think it's going to happen, but solo host invasions really should have been in this game. We're at a point now where we're running out of worlds to invade. The co-opers have beaten the game and they're moving on, and the only ones that are remaining are the gank squads and the AFK farmers. And if they did want to add solo host invasions back, there's a number of ways it could be implemented. They can make it happen only in the legacy dungeons where torrent can't be summoned. They can make it where you can only invade people who have popped a rune arc, and on top of that, they could add a cooldown to where after one person gets invaded, they have a certain time before they can get invaded again. That's how it's always been in the past, and it worked great. But even if that's off the table, the one thing that I think could save the PvP scene in this game is the balancing and then an added PvP arena, which I've talked about ad nauseum on this channel. As of right now, the duels are really not fun, and there's no incentive whatsoever to do them. I think what this game needs and what I think will save this game is an arena like Dark Souls 3 had, but that actually works, and then a rank or leveling system on top of it, something that gives the player a reason to do it and an incentive for winning. And I already know there's going to be comments that are saying that's not how these games work. If you want a ranking system, just go play Call of Duty or something. But the thing is, the past Souls games had ranking systems too, and they just weren't very good. And half the time when you tried to use the arena, somebody would lag out, or the matchmaking was so strict that you can never actually find an opponent. And I don't think those are problems that Elden Ring has to suffer for. I think an arena would be amazing for this game. I do think they're going to add one, because 3 of them already exist in the overworld. I just hope that when they do open, they're good, and they actively award the player for playing them. But this video is already getting long enough, so let me wrap up real quick. I think Elden Ring has the potential to be the best PvP game we've ever had in FromSoftware's catalog. But right now, there's so many problems, and there's so much hate hatred toward invaders that if you want to engage in the PvP of this game after beating the story mode, that you're gonna have a bad time no matter what you do. And I do genuinely feel like if something doesn't change soon, then the game is gonna fall pretty hard. Because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, PvP is what keeps people playing these games for a long time. And I do hope that FromSoftware is gonna realize that and make the changes accordingly. But at the end of the day, I am hopeful, and I do think we are gonna get an update that addresses this very soon. Hopefully at Summer Games Fest, but we'll just have to wait and see. Either way though guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.